Hold My Drink with Charlene and Ellie, a GoLoud original podcast, proudly sponsored by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. An ice-cold can of Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is so irresistibly tasty, it's worth protecting.
When we have a lack of sex education, you're absolutely going to have shame in completely immersed in that experience of what sex is for you until you learn how to slowly move towards those conversations, you know? So there's a difference, right? So between emotional connection and emotional investment, and where most people get mixed up in casual sex or, you know, friends with benefits, is that they don't know the difference between these two, and they don't even know that there is a difference,
I didn't
right?
know that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not having great sex and you would like to have better sex, you're looking at things like, how do you explore your own body to figure out what it is you actually like? Because if you talk to couples who aren't having great sex, what you will find is that they actually don't know what they like and what they don't like themselves.
Welcome to Hold My Drink with Charlene and Ellie. Our podcast is like a group chat between your best friends. The girls brought you on a night out where you spill all the gossip on relationships, dilemmas and life. We are so excited to share that today's episode is proudly sponsored by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar, which has a magical, irresistible taste and needs to be protected at all times. Nothing beats a nice cold can of Coca-Cola Zero Sugar.
I have to hide mine at home.
Yeah.
Had one last night with a pizza.
And it was, no one had took it yet.
No.
Got it in time.
But I always leave a little bit. I don't know why I do this. I always leave a little bit in my can until I fully finish my food.
For the final sip?
Yeah, it's the final, and then I know I'm done.
Out of the first sip, though.
The final sup, and that'll just
settles everything.
Yeah.
Settles all. Oh, I love the pizza. It's so good, it's worth protecting. How far will you go to protect yours? So on this week's episode of Hold My Drink, we had Jenny Keane, who is a sex educator in Ireland.
Full of knowledge.
Full of so much knowledge.
Mother of God.
We talked about
I can't even think of it now. Everything.
We talked about, how to start a conversation around sex. Talked about porn sex versus maybe the reality of it. Pain during sex.
STIs.
Is it normal not to enjoy sex?
Everything and anything. And it was just so interesting to hear from like a professional.
Yeah, we learned a lot. And also how to stop having bad sex.
Yeah.
Which is important. Then we also done Our Way to Italia, where I nearly got arrested. Secrets in the Stalls, which also were sex dilemmas for this week. Seeing as Jenny was here, she helped us out. Our Peak or Bleak of the Week and our Sip or Skip. And that's us. Hope you enjoyed. Woo. If you're a return listener, welcome back. And if you're a new listener, welcome. Hold My Drink is out for you every Wednesday. We also have bonus episodes every Monday, so you can listen to more of us now on the GoLoud app or wherever you get your podcasts. We are doing live shows.
Woohoo!
So we sold out of Cork,
which was
crazy. We woke up, it was sold out.
Yeah.
Wexford is sold out. Vicar Street, Saturday and Sunday there is Sickle Street. There is single tickets left, and we can get them now on Ticketmaster. And basically, some of them actually checked. Do you know there's tables in Vicar Street?
Yes.
So if your thing number is a like 91, 92 or whatever, that's your table number.
Yeah, it says row.
Yeah, it will say row, but it's actually
ticket.
your table.
Yeah.
But I see a few single tickets and there was like row 90 and row 91 and stuff like close by.
So they're at a table.
They're literally beside you.
Yeah.
Like your friend will be beside you. You might not be like, I'm sure whoever's sitting on the table will let you sit beside each other. And like their tables are like, imagine a little table with 4 people around it.
The tables are quite close as well in a good way.
Close. Yeah, in a good way. Like you'll be literally beside your friend.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to go, you haven't got a ticket, definitely pick up a single ticket or even go by yourself. Meet some new words. And then
Limerick! We're coming home. Like, I think everybody copped it when we were singing them.
Yeah.
Coming home.
There was a nightmare with the website.
The website crashed for a good half an hour.
Everyone went on it and it crashed.
That wasn't really great. But anyway, we got over that. So Limerick, Thursday the 16th of... Are we October or November? November. Sorry, I was like, what? So Limerick is Thursday the 16th of November. Limited tickets are on sale. They are on sale from uhc.ie, or you can call the box office. Oh, uch.ie.
Yeah.
Or you can call their box office. So that is the only place you can get Limerick tickets. So we're very excited to see all the home birds, like.
Yeah, so excited.
My outfit's already sorted for Limerick.
It's green.
Brilliant. Yeah. Any hints?
Also, I actually forgot to put the Facebook group up because I couldn't get into my Facebook account.
Oh no.
But I'm like, do you have Facebook?
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
just send me the link to the page.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's fine.
Haven't
So I
used
just
it
couldn't
in
log
20
in.
years.
I just couldn't log in because of password. But I will put it up, and that's where you can sell or swap your tickets. Because I was Ticketmaster Murphy there for a while.
Oh yeah. Ticket Murphy over there.
Also, Electric Picnic
Yeah, EP. We're
is
back.
this Saturday.
Yeah. God.
It is. Wow, that's going to come around really quick. 6:15 to 7:15. Our details will be on our Instagram page. What stage? I think it's called the Minefield stage.
Last year that's what it was. So I'm
Right
presuming
there,
it's the
yeah.
same this year.
It's in that kind of or the Minefield area. It's in. So we'll see us there. I wonder will it be like a bigger crowd because obviously last year there's a certain amount.
We were sober doing it last year as well.
We were stone cold sober.
Yeah, and we left straight after it and all.
Yeah, went to a hotel.
It's not going to be the case this year.
No,
Absolutely not.
no.
So come and have a ball with us if you're
Come
down
have a
at
ball.
EP.
This week's Wait Till I Tell You, I actually nearly got arrested.
She was unsure whether to tell this or not. She's like,
I was-
can I tell
I
it
was
on
like,
the podcast?
am I gonna get in trouble like telling him? I'm sure someone will have to say, but like basically I was collecting Dana from the airport on Saturday and I was getting I was like, can we get a Chinese high one? You slag me.
Hi, the way you say it. How do you say it? Hi one. Hi one.
High one in Finglas. And I by accident went down the one way road besides the because I'm really bad at knowing where I am when I'm there, like in relation to other things. Like I knew what road I was on when I was on it, but I didn't see it was one way. So I went straight through the crossroads onto the one way road. That's to your left is a shopping centre, a little mini shopping area. And then if you go Finglas.
Oh, Finglas, sorry.
If you went straight and left, you get to the high one, but like you can't go straight and left.
Thank God nobody was coming towards you.
Thank fuck. I only got like I was standing. I was this one way street. I seen an arrow on the road, and then the blue lights came on, and I was like, "Oh fuck!" But like, it was a genuine, honest mistake.
Yeah.
I didn't know, and that's
Easy.
why
We've all done it.
That's why I didn't get arrested because they were obviously like, "Here, she."
Or I don't think they'd arrest you anyway if you like.
Well, I get searched or something. What had happened? Not searched. She got pulled out of the car.
I don't
Asked for
know.
your license. Well, no. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, it all went really fast. Like I basically the blue lights was on behind me. I was like, oh fuck, pulled in, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And he was like,
Did you walk up to the car? Yeah?
No, they just rolled down their window.
Oh, he just pulled in beside you?
Yeah, I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm not from here. And he was like, where are you from? And I told him, he was like, God,
I'm a
you're
tourist.
you're far from home. And I was like, I know, I'm just trying to get Chinese. I say because I genuinely was so
So you saw
like
the fear in your face.
yeah,
It's like,
because
don't love her.
I wasn't even scared of them. I genuinely was like shocked at what I just done myself. Like that, it was an honest mistake. And then he was like, "And is that Mammy's car now?" And I was like, "No,
No, bitch.
it's mine."
My own.
And I was like, "Sorry." And then they literally I don't know if they followed us. They're just going the same way, but they went
Or it was
to
one way
High One.
road. They had to go the one way.
No, because we went around then to
Oh,
go
so-
to High One. Went to it, and then they were still behind us a little bit, and then they went. So maybe they're checking if I actually was getting a Chinese.
Yeah, if you were just spoofing.
And I also was wearing this little tiny outfit that I wore for my reel that I put up.
The little black
The black one,
Yeah.
I filmed a reel, and then Daniel texted me like he landed. I was like, fuck, I've no time to even get changed. Ran out the door in a little tiny mini skirt and a black
a Chinese.
and a black corset and a full face of makeup on, hair curled, and I'm telling them I got Chinese, and I actually was getting a Chinese.
Yeah.
Just collecting my fella from the airport. Daniel's eyes and he popped out of his head when he seen me.
God
in the car.
love him.
He's like, what the fuck?
But yeah,
Anyway.
nearly got arrested.
That was scary. I'd never got pulled over before in my life.
I never have either.
I haven't, never have.
I'd love to.
Really dangerous. Like, why did I just can't see well in the dark at all.
Yeah, I'm not a great nighttime driver.
I have astigmatism. My eyes. So I can't see in the dark.
I just get really overwhelmed with all the lights
Yeah. Very stupid now.
and roads. But
And now I'm like paranoid every road I'm on. It's this one road.
she's here.
And I actually am paranoid already, so I don't even know how that happens. Anyway, I'm here to tell tale. I'm not in prison.
No.
Thank God.
Next, we're gonna do peak or bleak of the week. So we're gonna pick one high, which was a peak, and one low, which was a bleak.
I'm going to do my bad news first.
Hit me.
Bleak of the week is Sean's leaving. The video he put up on his Instagram.
I was
His mum.
sobbing.
That was really sad.
Yeah.
And then I also have seen a really sad TikTok, and I got the realisation that when Sean leaves, 8 of my friends are like have moved away.
That's scary.
8. And then I have a long distance boyfriend, I have a long distance godchild, and a long distance sister. Everyone is long distance.
You basically are stuck with me. God love you. You poor thing.
Like I have a few friends here that aren't, but everyone else is just do I smell or something? Like what?
Is it me? Am I the problem?
Yeah. Isn't that mad?
I also don't blame them though. Like
no, either do I. But come back.
Yeah.
As long as they come back, it's fine.
Yeah.
Don't start loving where you are.
No, don't make it a lifetime thing.
Cheek that.
No. Who wants that? What's your peak?
My peak of the week was seeing Dano, and I got a TV.
Oh, did you buy your TV?
Yeah, and I made a lovely steak last night.
Did you hook up your TV and all?
Yeah, it's all connected and all, yeah.
Works?
Lovely one, yeah.
Stunning.
Real skinny.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Did you peel off the thing on the
No, I'm scared.
Was there none?
No, there is one, but I need to do it satisfying.
You need to
I just
record
didn't do it yesterday, yeah.
I want to
made a really nice steak last night, actually, as well.
Where'd you buy the steak?
Lidl, actually.
Oh yeah, Lidl. Not
guys,
Lidl. Did you hear this?
Stick for calling it that.
Work though, your video went viral.
Yeah, fuck me.
2 million, is it?
2.6 million views or something.
yeah.
Of all my pink appliances. Love it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what about you?
My peak was I was in the hospital this morning and I'm all good.
Yeah, that's a good peak.
Don't need surgery. We're flying it. That's my peak. My bleak. It's a bit sad on Saturday, but
Why?
got over. I was bored. I was sad because I was bored. Isn't that very sad? I was literally lying in my room and it was like
Was it done?
7 o'clock or something, and I was like,
me and Dana. Actually, no, he wasn't even there until 11.
and I was like, is this my life? I was like, I'm so sad. Had a little cry and then I felt grand.
Why? What would you rather do on a Saturday? Like go out, or like do?
Yeah, I think I felt kind of lonely. I was like, oh, this is
Really?
really sad.
Feeling lonely is not a nice feeling.
Yeah.
You should have told me. I came
No,
to me.
really. knew
I
you
was
were
still
sad
at
all the
home.
time. No.
I was usually home.
But then I had a cry, I had a shower,
And you're fine.
and I was fresh.
Yeah.
Got into bed and watched a movie, and I was grand, like I didn't care.
Do you know what though? I feel like also that's just a part of like growing up, because usually you're out every week, like when you're younger, like whatever, going out every weekend, you don't actually get to feel that feeling.
Yeah.
But then when you do, you're like, what is this? But
Yeah.
like maybe it's just that sometimes you get bored.
Yeah. And last night I kind of started to feel like that again, so I went
Yeah.
down and watched the Dairy Girls with my mum and dad,
And it was fun.
and I felt
Yeah.
grand.
Yeah.
So got over that very
Yeah.
quickly. So yeah, peak or bleak, there we are.
Very good. So today on Home or Drink we have Jenny Keane, who is a holistic sex educator. Can you tell us a little bit about your profession and how you maybe got into it and got started doing that?
Yeah, that's always the first question I get asked.
Yeah.
It's like a really long answer.
Yeah.
Because it's about 10 years of my life. You know, I didn't have a linear path into this career. I actually never even knew it was an option for me either. You know, for me, it really started like from my own curiosity. So I suppose I have I have threads from like when I'm a teenager that it makes sense as to why I'm doing this now. But then I suppose where it started for me was I started traveling quite young, and I ended up in California living over there. And I had a really bad history of my menstrual cycle, like really bad periods. It's on my back for about 10 days. Once I started to bleed, the cycle was really irregular. Like it would come between like 39 and 75 days. I wouldn't know when it was coming except 3 days beforehand. I would literally feel like I had been possessed by a demon, you know. And then I'd have a massive fight with someone really close to me, whether it was like you know, an unsuspecting boyfriend at the time, God love them, you know, or my family, you know. And then after that episode would end, I'm like, okay, my period's coming in 3 days, you know. And so I was always told like there's no other option than just going on the pill for me. And then when I went to America, I was doing lots of yoga and all that kind of stuff. I started going workshops, and they started like talking about different ways that you can work with your menstrual cycle. And I was like, oh my God, like there isn't just the pill, like the option of the pill, I could do other things. And then California was really, really open at that time. And this is like when I'm like in my early 20s. So this is 15 years ago now at this point.
Ireland wasn't like that then, was it?
Oh no, it wasn't at all. Like it was just I remember seeing a gay couple walking down the street in front of me holding hands, and I remember feeling scared for them because I was in San Francisco. We were walking down at night, and I remember being like, oh my God, are they safe, you know? And then I was like, oh my God, this is so different like to Ireland, because we just I would never have seen that in Ireland back then, you know. And then I started going to these workshops, and because I had more questions, you know, I'm like, okay, well, what else can I do? do with my period? And then I was like, does anyone know about female ejaculation? And then the women would be like, oh, you need to go to this woman, and there was a workshop on it. And then those workshops kind of started going. I started going into workshops around like literally around everything, like how to give a good blow job, like how to give a good hand job, workshops on sex toys. And I was like, and in the beginning I remember being like, is this weird to go to? But once I found myself in the workshops, the information that they were giving me, I was just like, how did no one tell me this? Like, how do I know? How everyone should know this stuff, you know? And it was also just like really good fun. Like sometimes you kind of think like, oh God, is this going to be seedy? And are there going to be perverts
in a dungeon?
The red room.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't at all. It was always just really open, really good fun. Like, we had such a laugh. And then you learned loads as well.
And when you say workshop, is it like, what I imagine in my head is you're sitting at a table, like a little notepad and pen. Is someone like demonstrating things? Like
yeah, well, the ones that I went to in California were, it depended. Like, so the female ejaculation one was really shocking for me because I'm in my early 20s. I go in and it's a room full of women, and basically one of the women is the teacher, and she's explaining, you know, what the G-spot is, where it is. You can actually see it from the outside, and then also techniques about how to actually work the G-spot. So what you would have known mostly and how to work the G-spot is all that you see in porn. Like, it's like the you know? And then it's like spray the walls. And so she was then showing us different techniques, and she was using a real woman's body. So she was naked in the middle of the room. We're all sitting there, and I remember looking around being like, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Not a vagina, you know, which I now know is a vulva, not a vagina. But and it was so funny because everyone was just so curious there. There was no seediness, there was no weirdness, and it was all just like, oh wow, this is fascinating. It's like really interesting to see other ways to touch a body that, you know, it doesn't look like what porn looks like, you know. And it was really, there was a lot of tenderness in the space, like, and a lot of openness. There was women of all ages there as well, and so it was amazing because you got to speak to older women who are going through different things, or they'll share different like, they'll have different questions and different scenarios. They might say like, oh, I was able to orgasm when I was younger, but I can't orgasm anymore. And so all these conversations became really normal to hear. And I think it's really supportive when you're young, you know, because when you start to traverse through your sexual life, you come face to face with all of these I suppose, issues and struggles and experiences. And when you've heard other people asking about them, you're like, oh, right, there's no shame in this.
It's normal.
You know, this is normal. Other people have gone through it. I'm not alone. So it was a really open environment. And then, for example, the blowjob one was, we all had suction cup dildos. They were on the table.
What's a suction cup dildo?
Sticks to the table. You know, like a suction cup at the bottom of it.
Why would you need that though?
So it doesn't just be in your hand.
So like, someone could, so you could put it on the table and go on it
and practice. Yeah, or you can stick it against a shower. You know, the glass of the shower or something. Yeah, do you know like the like fufa things that you wash yourself with in the shower, and you stick them like,
the little
on the it's like that, only it has with a dildo. Yeah,
there
you
we
can
go.
stick it to the ground as well, and like you can practice like self-pleasure, all that kind of stuff with this. So
oh my God,
yeah, so you don't have to use your hands, you know, the kind of way if you get tired.
Is that like the workshop and stuff? Was that kind of how you got comfortable talking about sex, or would you've always been kind of?
I was always comfortable talking about sex, and I suppose that because my family were really open with me as well. It wasn't any different to like, you know, what's happening in school. It was just thrown in, like, you know, at the dinner table. It was just a part of the conversation, and it wasn't you know, different. That didn't mean that I liked listening to them. Like, I was like the one like I'm not like, stop it, you know, turning bright red, and then if it got too much for me, I'd leave the room. But I suppose it taught me as well that there's nothing wrong with that conversation as well. And I didn't get sex education in school. It was minimal, you know. And so I think then when I started to go, like when I started to travel the world and explore all these different things, I was like, oh, this isn't like, I was already starting with a very good foundation of it being okay to have these conversations. It's okay to ask questions, you know, it's okay to talk about it. And so it breaks down a lot of, I suppose, initial barriers around like shame and guilt and, you know, trying to hide what's going on because you don't know how to speak about it in the first place.
What is that shame behind it? Because there definitely is. It's like, it makes, like, someone even in our question box said how to stop feeling like guilty or like dirty after sex.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is something that you can feel like, where does that come from?
Is it something that we've just like grown up to nearly taught, like, not to talk about it.
Yeah.
Vulgar.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, right? Because if you think like, what kind of sex education did you have in school? Like you're way younger. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
25.
28.
Yeah. So I'm like 12 years older than you, you know. So I'm 37, you know. So like, what sex education did you have in school?
I don't even remember mine.
I think mine was only in primary school, and we got separated from the boys.
Yeah.
And brought and done like a little, I don't even know.
It's probably like a cartoon video of the birds and the bees, and like nothing beyond that. Like the sperm meets the egg.
You learn more from like in your friends telling you, oh, did you know this? What? Blah, blah,
yeah,
blah. That's what I remember in my head. I don't remember being from sex ed.
Or I'll never forget my mom trying to show me a book. She sat me down in her room and showed me this book. Yeah. I freaked. I ran out of that room as fast as I could. I was like, get me out of here.
It's like the easy way to do, just give me a book.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, God, why? But like there was no. I feel like the sex education in school was like I said, the egg meets the sperm and the baby is born. Yeah, but that's how a baby's born. That's not sex. Like
exactly.
You learn nothing about the actual act of sex, kind of.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's the thing, right? So when it comes to the lack of conversation around sex, when we don't talk about it, there's definitely shame involved, right? Isn't it? So if you think about your sex education, generally what sex education is it's preventative and fear-based. So it's like, don't have sex, you're going to get pregnant or you're going to get an STI, right?
What's that movie again?
Do you know?
No, what's that movie? Your man standing at the whiteboard.
Oh, Mean Girls.
Is it? Yeah.
You will is STI and die.
And die. Yeah. And you will die. Yeah. But it's like that. It's literally like feared. You're nearly forced to feel fear.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely, yeah. And so when you then, you know, everyone has these urges, like they want to explore sex, they want to explore sexuality, and so when you start to do that, you're bringing all of this information that you've picked up along the way. If you've never received sex education, your parents have definitely not received sex education, and so they don't know how to have the conversation with you either. So then there's more shame still, more secrecy still, and so it becomes really difficult, because when you have questions, we all have questions, right? When you have questions, who do you turn to?
Google.
Generally,
probably the worst thing to ask.
But you know what? Google is so much better nowadays than it was like when I was like Googling things, you know, because there's way more information. There's amazing resources online as well for sex education, and you know, even for sex skills and things like this, like how do I do this and how do I do that extend beyond porn, you know. Generally though, people will go to what's free and available to them, which is porn. And porn isn't sex education, and it isn't even really sex, right? It's the I suppose it's like an adventure movie, right? I always say that it's like you're watching, it's like the Fast and Furious, you know, it's like, it's not real sex. It's very exaggerated images, exaggerated camera angles. There's exaggerated noises. There's exaggerated, you know, body parts and everything like this. Everything is exaggerated in that because it's supposed to break the, and that's important. The important thing is that it does its job actually, because the purpose of porn is that it's supposed to bring you to arousal quickly. It's not supposed to teach you about what sex is, you know? So it's doing its job really well if you look at it from that point of view. But from a sex education point of view, it's not what we're supposed to be learning, you know. And so when we have this lack of conversation, when we have a lack of sex education, you're absolutely going to have shame in completely immersed in that experience of what sex is for you, until you learn how to slowly move towards those conversations, you know.
Of course.
Yeah. And that's like literally just doing what we're doing here, right? Like having these conversations. Like when I moved online, so beforehand, my work was all in person beforehand, and I started off, so after I did the workshops in California, I ended up going all around the world, and I was hungry for information, I was hungry for knowledge, and I had one question led to another question, led to another question. I was like, who's the best person to answer this question? And I ended up then training in somatic sex therapy and trauma therapy. And it was just transformative. Like I was like, oh my God, this is insane. When I started working with people I started first of all shadowing mentors first of all, and then I started working one-on-one with people. And in those in all of that, everyone that came had the exact same questions when it came to something that they were experiencing. And those questions were basic sex education questions. So they were trying to understand why they had no interest in sex anymore. They were trying to understand why they were able to orgasm at one point in their life and now they can't orgasm anymore. They're trying to understand the difference between, things like desire and fantasy. I fancy my boss. Does this mean I want to break up with my partner and be with him? Like these kind of questions that people have. And they're holding so much shame over them because of the lack of sex education in the first place. Yeah. And so when these questions were coming in, I was like, oh, everyone just needs like sex education first. So I started taking small groups of people to teach the basics of sex education. And one of the first workshops that I created was all around orgasm, because there were so many women who were coming with this issue. Like, I don't know if I've ever orgasmed, or I've only ever had one type of orgasm. I don't know if I can have other types. I used to be able to orgasm. Now it's suddenly disappeared. And so all of these different questions. And so basically we just broke down everything in that workshop. And what was really important is that people in that small space were realizing like it takes a lot of courage to step into those types of workshops. If you're experiencing, issues and you're having problems, step into a space with other people and say, I'm experiencing this or I'm experiencing that. It takes, a huge amount of courage to open up. And after the workshops, loads of little people were like, I didn't even know that was an orgasm. I've been having them the whole time,
So,
and then in lockdown, then I was due to hold one of those workshops in person in Dublin here. And the workshops generally take about, I would have wait lists of about 3 months to get into the workshops, because you could only hold as much as a room could hold, which was like 23 women. And I never advertised them. And anyway, I messaged them and said, look, everyone's doing this thing on Zoom. I don't know if it's going to work, but let's just see what happens. And if it doesn't work, sure, we'll be out in 6 weeks, so it's grand. And then once I put it online, the ball just started rolling on it. And again, there was no advertisement around it. Like, I had 100 women in the first workshop. I had so many women message me and it was just on my Instagram. I had 1,000 followers at this point. And they said to me, I missed that. Can you put it on again? Put it on again. 100 places, like gone in a couple of minutes. And then I put it on again. Someone said to me, buy the 500 participant one. And I'm thinking, I don't need a 500 participant thing for this. Are you mad? That was gone. I had 500 women in the next one. And the next one I had 800 women. And it just kept rolling. And I started to have these massive conversations online. And I was showing, like, people were again sending me the same questions that I would hear in person all the time. And there's the same questions that every single person has. And every single person wants to know. So I was screenshotting the DMs with permission, and then putting them anonymously on my story, and people were messaging and going, this is so crazy, like it's like I wrote that message to you.
How much they can relate to it.
And one of the biggest things that you can do when it comes to removing shame is involving yourself in places where that conversation is happening really openly, because as you start to hear people talk about sex in a really normal, really open manner, and just in a really raw manner as well, like really honest, and it also can be funny, and it can be, serious, it can be all these things. The more you include yourself in listening to those type of conversations, the easier it is for your brain to understand that it's okay to have this conversation. It's okay to ask these questions, No,
I can 100% understand that though. Like, if you ever felt any shame like that, sure, if you're in a room with 10, 20, 30 other women who are all talking about the exact same thing that you're feeling, you can automatically nearly feel that weight lifting off you, being like, oh, well, they all think the exact same as me.
Yeah, absolutely. And because we're also told, by society, we're told what sex looks like, what sex sounds like, what sex feels like. We're all told what an orgasm looks like, right? And the orgasm is generally that, when Harry met Sally, the Meg Ryan orgasm, right? That's what everyone thinks they're looking for an orgasm. But if you orgasm in different ways, and you might not have that typical orgasm, that orgasm was kind of coined by Johnson and Masters in the 60s or something like this, and they have it termed like the four stages of arousal, basically, or orgasm, and it's essentially looks exactly like the Meg Ryan orgasm. So it starts off with blood is pumping. There's the excitement stage, blood is pumping. You start to feel a little bit more aroused. Then it goes to plateau stage. This is where arousal continues to build. Then you have the climax stage, which is where you have that moment of like explosion, like, and then you have the resolution, which is the relaxation afterwards, where it's like, like this, right?
And you
so
do actually feel great.
Yeah.
Don't you get like good hormones and all?
Yeah, but that particular one is a really great way to like release stress from the body. It also pumps like neurochemicals around the body, so things like oxytocin, which is like the love drug. So it makes you feel it makes you feel like you're on drugs, basically, right? Like it's just that it opens up the body to like feel more movement as well, which makes you feel alive. It makes you feel more connected. So whether that's, whether you're self-pleasuring and that's connection to yourself, or whether you're with a partner and that's connection to the other person. But that's just one type of orgasm, there's many different ways to orgasm, many different ways orgasm moves through your body as well. So if you've never had that, it's really normal for you to think like, oh, I've never orgasmed before, But like this is where it's like education. I always say education is so important, because you learn all of the different ways that orgasm can move through your body, and the way that orgasm feels in your body. Excuse me. And that's where people start to, I suppose, widen their definition of what sex can feel like, and it's not just what has been implanted,
told to us, forced into our head.
And is it true that men don't have that hormone that like when they what's the actual word for ejaculate, that they don't have that oxytocin? Because I read somewhere before that they don't, and that's why girls get really connected after sex, but like men don't necessarily.
Girls get cuddly and men are like,
no, even like a one night stand or something, like the girl might fall in love a little bit, but the man doesn't. Is that true, or is that
it's not myth? It's not totally true. That's that's much more complex than it's describing. And they do have oxytocin, and it's possible for oxytocin to move through their body. So when we talk about arousal, the 4 neurochemicals of arousal are serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin and cortisol. Okay. Yeah. And when it comes to arousing a testosterone-based body, so a male body, it tends to be that they will use the pathway of cortisol more than the others, right? This doesn't mean that this is for every single person. And I said there's some women or estrogen-based bodies that also enjoy that kind of and feel aroused from, the cortisol pathway. But this is where you kind of it makes sense when you look at, have you seen like men who do these things like the Wim Hof stuff, or they go for ice baths, all that stuff, right? So that's like, using cortisol. So it's like the stress hormone of like, pumping the body. They're doing this crazy breath work, like or like this kind of stuff, like jumping in ice baths, like, which is going to like really, fire up their body. And this helps them to feel aroused and, moves energy through their body. When we look at estrogen-based bodies or women's bodies, what we're looking at is that we generally use the pathway of oxytocin. So this means like things like, light touch and hugging and like, like doing like small things like this, like can really help, like massage almost, really help like turn the body on. So like really like kisses on the neck or something like this, that can help to initially arouse an estrogen-based body. And but we know that, men and testosterone-based bodies also respond to this as well. So there's, it's not, one thing for one gender or one thing for the other gender. The thing I think that people talk about afterwards, where it's like, oh, women are more connected than men. I think there's a lot of it mixed up, not just with like our biology, but also with, I suppose, society and like what's been historically acceptable for women and what's been historically acceptable for men. So if we think about like, way back when, because this is also in our DNA, right? Way back when, it was encouraged for men to, and I'm not, I suppose, encouraged, but like acceptable for men to sleep with a lot of different women. So if we think about like, a man could be married to a woman, but also still be sleeping. And this is like decades ago, like even centuries ago, it was like this. But a woman could only stay with that one man, especially if she married him, right? And this was because they needed to make sure that, the land, for example, that they were the children were inheriting was actually the man of the guy, right, who owned it, right?
I didn't know there was like history behind how people think.
It's so exactly because it's all woven in, to culture and things like this. So it wasn't acceptable for women to, sleep around. Women were punished for it, right? Whereas men, it wasn't so much that they were celebrated for it, but it was definitely not something that was discouraged, So we have this kind of element where it's like, I suppose coming from past where it's easier for women to attach afterwards, and things like, emotional connection, right? Like when you feel emotionally connected to someone, you will attach to somebody, when you feel that you're heard, when you feel that you're loved, when you feel that you're supported, you want to keep going back to that connection because in your mind, your body is telling you like, and your brain is telling you like, this is a good connection for us. Like we're safe here, we're loved here, we're supported here, right? And so I think, when it comes to women, I think it's about learning how to, especially I always get this question around like, I want to engage in casual sex, but I'm always attached whenever I have sex afterwards, right?
Fall in love.
Not that you've done it, but you would.
Oh, 100%.
I think casual sex is shit.
No, I don't have a lot of casual sex, but if I have sex with like one man, I'm like, that's it now. Love him. Love him forever.
When you have emotional connection, it's like a different type of sex.
Yeah.
Because you can actually know what the other person likes. I feel like when it's like a one night stand, it's like,
I've never had a one night stand.
Can you make a one night stand good? Is there ways of making it better?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is actually learning how to separate. Like, so first of all, looking at like your intentions behind why you're having sex, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody wants to have a relationship at one point in time in their life, right? But they still might want to enjoy sexual experiences and just get off, right? Because the reason that we engage in sex is like might be because we want to feel close to somebody, or we want to feel close to ourselves, or we want to feel pleasure, or maybe we just need to be fucked and release some stress, right?
Bingo!
There's nothing wrong with those things, right? So I think it's like looking at like what your intention is, like where you're at in your life. Do you want a relationship right now? Are you happy single? Are you happy exploring in that manner? And then when you engage in casual sex, I think first of all, sexual health is so important. So like if you can't talk about condoms with somebody, if you can't talk about your sexual health status, like, so whatever that is, like when's the last time that you got tested, asking the person you're going to be with, like when's the last time they got tested. If you can't have those conversations, I think you need to work on that first before you step into the casual sex space, because if you can't fully relax, then you are not going to have a good sexual experience. And if in the back of your mind you're thinking like, oh shit, I never like what happens if he has something, like, oh, and those are things you don't want to find out afterwards, right? Some people can't relax if they're thinking about those things. So it's okay to ask those questions. If you ask that question to somebody and they are unwilling to answer, or else they're trying to shame you for then that is a massive red flag. And it's also a place like where if someone was like that with me, I'd be like, sorry, this is not happening.
Clothes
go back on. Go there.
And then it's also then about like maintaining so there's a difference, right? So between emotional connection and emotional investment, and where most people get mixed up in casual sex or, friends with benefits, is that they don't know the difference between these two, and they don't even know that there is a difference,
I didn't
right?
know that.
Yeah. So, and it's again, this is how we like take care of our emotions. So the reason I talk about holistic sex is because sex isn't just happening on a physical level, like, in terms of like the act, it's also happening on a mental level. It's happening on an emotional level. So it's understanding, I suppose, all the levels of sex. So when it comes to casual sex, emotional connection, it is possible to know somebody for a night, or to know somebody for a couple of days, or to know somebody over a period of time and be emotionally connected to them. We don't have to like, blank them, or, dismiss them, or keep them at arm's length in order to stay in the casual sex experience. And then emotional investment is more so when, you see something in the future with this person and you start to emotionally invest. That means, you know, if they have problems, you're taking time to listen to those problems. If you have problems, you're hoping they're going to take the time to listen to you. They're asking you how you are and how you're feeling this week and what's important to you, and, you know, what your values are and what you're and these are all like things of emotional investment. And we all have little signals that we do, and they come from years and years of I suppose habits that we have, especially early on in relationships. So for example, you're saying like if you have sex with somebody, you're like, that's it, that's us forever.
I'm in love.
Yeah. So if you have this and you know that you do it, like watch for the things that you do. So it might be that you might start putting, and maybe people want to admit this or don't want to admit it, but like things like you might start putting your first name with their last name, and you're like, what does that sound like? Yeah, yeah. And you're just like, oh, I wonder where we get married, and like, does he want kids? You know,
I think I emotionally invest in everyone then.
Yeah. But like, it's okay if you have this, but like, if your intention is that you want to just have a casual relationship with this person, and it isn't going anywhere in the future, and you don't even want it to go anywhere, then you have to catch yourself doing these things because they're habits that we have formed. So when you start seeing yourself putting your first name with their last name, you need to catch that and you go, no, not in this space. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then it's always making sure that like if you're in a long-standing kind of friends with benefits situation, you're making sure that you are checking in with yourself all of the time, you know, and you're like, am I still in the same place?
You have to be so strong to like friends with benefits. I've never seen it like actually work.
Doesn't, yeah, well, no.
Like I feel you'd want to be one hell of a woman or a man to just fully be able to just literally shag and then just be
I don't think mine's ever it starts as friends with benefits and it just turns into something. I wouldn't be able to like stop it before it lays eggs. And
before it gets too far.
Yeah.
Do you have to be really strong to be able to do that? Like,
I think so. Yeah, I think it's more about just having aware and having really strong boundaries, and also you know, constantly going back to, like, I always ask this question, like, it's like, and to tell people to ask the question, like, what do I want? You know, and it's really important that you constantly go back, whatever relationship you're in, whatever situationship you're in, you know, whatever is evolving, is constantly asking yourself, what do I want? It's very easy as we get into relationships that we kind of just get taken down the stream of it, and we don't really ask ourselves, like, is that actually the person who I want to be with? Like, do I feel well in this relationship? Do I feel supported? Do I feel heard? Do I feel seen? You know, am I able to express myself openly here? You know, how do we manage conflict? All of these questions are really important to ask, and very rarely do we step back and say, you know, is this actually what I want? You know, I think because as connections develop, and if you do, you know, move from the space of emotional connection to emotional investment, the emotional investment becomes so entangled. So the idea of separating that and almost like, you know, breaking that apart is very difficult. Like, we all experience heartbreak, right? It's very, very hard for the body, physically, emotionally, mentally, right? So all of us try to avoid those things because we're trying to keep ourselves safe ultimately. So there's a lot of people who would rather stay in a relationship that isn't actually working for them, and that isn't supportive of who they are and how they want to be in the world, rather than, and they'll stay there, you know, rather than, you know, break out of that relationship and try to build a life that is more independent and, you know, searching for what it is that you actually want.
It's nearly easier to stay in it.
Rather than, because you kind of choose to make yourself vulnerable then if you're leaving something like that, and it's good, but it's scary.
It's always scary, you know. It's all because also as well, like, when we build relationships, we're building habits. So like little small things, like when you break up with someone, like not seeing their name pop up on your phone anymore becomes really heartbreaking, right? Like really small things. When something happens like in your day and it's really good, and then the first thing you think of is, I'm going to call them, and then you realize, oh my God, I can't, right? Those things become really heartbreaking. So it's like a really small, it's a really slow recovery, right? Like heartbreak is. So we'll tend to avoid that as much as we can. It's being open and being honest with people, you know. And I think, you know, there's a really interesting thing where because we don't get really good sex education, and because all we hear is, you know, don't have sex or you'll get an STD, you know. And everyone's like, oh my God, this is a terrible thing to get, you know. That when you do experience, like, you know, getting an infection, you know, we have no tools to be able to support ourselves. Like, you know, where do we go, you know, and what do we do, and what signs should we be looking looking for, when like what's healthy and what's not healthy, and then how do we have those conversations with the people that we've had sex with, you know? So and really all you can do is just you know, pick up the phone and say, hey, I just got tested, I have this, it would be worthwhile for you to get tested as well. And the thing is that one of the things that you have to, I suppose, arm yourself against is that if somebody has a lot of shame on their side or doesn't have the education, the way that people tend to react is either it's one of two ways. We'll either go into shame, which is like, oh my God, I'm a bad person, you know, oh, I was a slut, I had sex with too many people, like I'm you know, they're going to think I'm this, they're going to think I'm that. So we go into really negative thinking about ourselves. It's all that shaming and self-shaming. Or else we go into blaming. That fucking prick gave me this, you know, like I know it was fucking him, you know, this kind of thing. So that's the blame, right? And so it's like because we don't know what to do with it, because we have no tools other than just take it inside of us, where it's like, you know, we hold on to it or else we explode it out. And so just being really matter of fact in those conversations of, I got a test, this is what I have, I'm taking medication for it, it'd be worthwhile you getting a test, you might need medication. And whatever their reaction is, that's their reaction, you know. Whatever their reaction is going to tell you a lot about the person, right? About who they are. If they go into blaming you, you just have to know that that's just the way that they're handling this in this moment. And it's really trying to like protect yourself from not taking that on, because it's not yours to take on, you know. If they say like, oh, I knew you were a fucking slut, like that's not yours. That's theirs.
You could also get it off issue one person. Like it doesn't mean you've slept around with people. Like
absolutely,
you get it off a singular person. Like.
And it depends on what it is. Some infections, some diseases don't actually don't show up as symptoms for people as well. And this is why it's really important that you're taking tests regularly, you know, because things like chlamydia, gonorrhea for women are not good. You know,
infertile, can't you?
There's risks
if you don't,
of that.
if
it's not treated. So it's being and again, that's how you can, you know, maintain, you know, a good sexual connection with yourself as well. Like, and the more that you do these things, you know, if you feel a lot of shame or embarrassment, like going to an STD or an STI clinic, I mean, now you can get tests at home, you know, get them sent to you, you know, and they're free tests. You can get them from the HSC. On Instagram, I used to do this thing where I'd be like, right, everyone, you know, it's that time of the month where we're all going to get tested together. And then it was so funny where basically we would overwhelm the HSC for that day.
Send them all in. Oh my God.
And then there'd be like, sorry, we've reached our limit for today.
That's the backlog of tests.
So and it's like kind of like making it fun, you know, the kind of way. So it's really important that you can have, you know, you can be engaged in those conversations with yourself, and then, you know, just literally tell the person, and whatever their reaction is, it's theirs, you know, to hold, not yours, you know.
We're going to move on to some of the questions that our listeners have sent in. So this is on the Home I Drink page in the question box. Have you had a little scan at them yet?
I have ones written out here.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. So how should we start conversations of what we like in the bedroom? Like at the start of a relationship, but also like maybe a few years in, where like you haven't maybe told them something and like you want to try something new. How do you change the conversation for each one of them, and how do you start it?
Yeah, okay. There's so much in that.
Yeah,
that's
really long-winded.
It's a really important question.
Yeah.
So in the beginning of a relationship, when we are first, like initially with somebody, we tend not to ask too many questions. Do you ever notice
No,
this?
yeah, you don't.
Right? Because novelty tends to be the thing that, you know, bodies are new, you know, the sounds are new, the way somebody is moving is new, and the way somebody is touching you is new. So we tend not to say, you know, I like this or I don't like this. It tends just to be that novelty is the glue that kind of like propels the relationship forward, and also the kind of sexual interactions forward. And then over time, what I always say is that one of the biggest things, especially for women, is to continue to engage in self-pleasure, or if you don't engage in self-pleasure, to start. And this can be very daunting for people, because we're told from a very young age, you know, good girls don't touch themselves, you know, that kind of way. And it's also very vulnerable, right, for a woman to touch herself. And it's so much more vulnerable for one to touch herself than a man, right? Like their penis is on the outside, like you can see it, whereas like a woman has to go inside of herself, right? So even that act alone can feel really, really daunting. And also we're not taught how to do it, okay? And again, when there's not really much online that you can find like this. So I do workshops like on self-pleasure techniques, so touching techniques, and they are, when women do them, they're just like, I never even knew this was an option, right? So it's like not even going straight to the genitals to touch yourself, but like going around your body, like starting at different erogenous zones, like learning how to massage and caress your own breasts, like, which is really important for bringing blood flow into your whole body, but also there's a connection between your breasts and your genitals. And so learning how to, I suppose, link the whole body is really important. So things like when you learn how to touch yourself, you're learning what type of touch you like, what type of touch you don't like. So for some people, they might like really, firm touch, like really like gripping and squeezing. For some people, they might like really kind of almost like watery or liquid or fluidy touch. For other people, it might be like really kind of like wispy or almost like a whispery type touch. And for some people, they don't want much touch at all, right? So learning what type of touch you like, the more you self-pleasure, the more you are going to, I suppose, start to build data for yourself. So in moments where you are experiencing, say, a lot of stress in your life, like you've got huge deadlines in work, you've got a lot of responsibility at home, whether it's your family or whether you're going through an illness or whatever it is, the type of touch that you want and need will change. So for people who are in high stress situations, will probably hate that kind of light tickly touch, because that will excite the body and arouse the body at a really high rate. And so you're already at a high rate if you're experiencing, say, lots of anxiety. So that touch is generally not good for your body. And the touch that you would like would be more firm, kind of held touch, or maybe even not moving at all and just holding. So like a really strong hug, right?
Yeah.
The type of touch that you want, say, if you're experiencing bouts of a depression, would probably be like quicker touch, right? Like more kind of activated, or even that kind of like, karate chop touch, right? So when you touch your own body, you start to experiment with all of this. It's you start to build this database, and once you know what you like, you can then talk to the person about what you like and tell them, right? As they're touching you as well, it's like in the moment you can be almost like keeping a catalogue of like, I really like when they did this, I really like when they do that. I would avoid in sexual circumstances saying, I don't like that, or don't do that anymore.
Like during the act, don't
during
say
it. It's so imagine if you're doing something to somebody and someone says, oh, stop doing that, I don't like it. Or that isn't good.
It might
right?
throw you off.
It might throw you off,
yeah.
right? So it might feel like a little bit like, oh my God, like shame, like I'm really bad at this, or oh my God, does he hate like the way I give blowjobs? I'm not good at blowjobs, right? Like our mind goes crazy. So you want to avoid saying things that you don't like. You want to focus on what you do like. So instead of saying like, don't do that or stop doing that, you say, oh, I really liked it when you were touching that spot a little bit slower, like you were doing a little bit before.
Yeah.
And then if they slow down, you go, yeah, even slower. Oh my God, that's really good. Keep going. Even slower again, even slower again, right? So you're guiding in the positives rather than the negatives, right? Yeah. Because that's going to keep somebody, I suppose, keep them encouraged, right?
Yeah.
And then also keep them I suppose, enthusiastic about it, right? Because someone can, pop your balloon really fast, right?
Yeah.
When someone says that wasn't good, So always focusing on what you do like, and that's even during the act or then afterwards as well. And then in the moment after sex, there's a really beautiful space. Like aftercare is really important. So like that moment where it's like, oh, like let's not run away and try and fix everything and clean ourselves up or everything. Let's just take and that's if you have time. Sometimes you're just having a quickie and that's it,
yeah,
right?
That's fine.
But like if you have time for aftercare and it's like, you're holding each other, like you can say in those moments, oh, it felt really good when you did this to me, and it felt really good when you did that to me. So that's ways that you can kind of, I suppose, encourage what you do like.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to more conversations, if you want to go into in depth in terms of like things that you like more than you don't like, have them outside of the bedroom. So don't have them inside. If you want to start or try something new, have that conversation outside of the bedroom first. And I would always recommend as well that you're not doing it while you're sitting down or in some kind of stationary position, or where you're kind of might feel trapped. Like, so say if you're in a car,
staring at
and like say if you're just in a car, like, and you're sitting there for 45 minutes from this and you're in traffic and you have a question or you have like a thing that you want to bring bring up, and then suddenly that conversation is just locked down, you know, that it's like you don't want to be in that same space and that same energy because it can almost compound the situation. So it's, you know, go for a walk, or, you know, when you're outside, like have that question, and the way that you would initiate or bring up the kind of idea of introducing something new would be around, it would never be like, you know, I'd really like to try bondage or something like this. Do you want to do that? So the answer to that question is generally a yes or a no, right? Yeah. If it's a no, what's the next question? Yeah. You're kind of shut down, right? Yeah. So learning skills of sexual communication is really important. So you never want to ask a question where there's a yes, no answer to. What you want to do is keep the question open. Right? And kind of, you say like, oh, do you know, I saw this thing on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, about bondage. Like I was wondering, like, have you ever done that? Have you ever experienced it? Like, how do you feel about that? When you say, how do you feel about that? You're asking an open question where someone's like, well, you know, I've never done that before. I don't know if I'd be too comfortable with it. And, you know, and then when someone says they're not too comfortable with it, it's not a full no.
Yeah, you're not getting shut down.
Yeah,
you're
kind of open-ended more, yeah.
So you can ask another question. You can say, would you be interested in like exploring that a little bit with me? Like, I don't know, I think I'd like to explore it a little bit. And so it becomes a lot more about approaching the situation from a place of curiosity and exploration, you know, rather than demands as well, right? So those are the things you want to avoid. And then I suppose, and then what I would say as well, like seeking out sex education is so important, right? Because when we talk about sex skills, we're looking at we're talking about the fact that when we grow up, we're told or given the impression that sex is just something we all know how to do, right? And it's just absolutely not true. We're told like, oh, sex is natural, and yes, it's natural, but we don't know what we're doing, right? No, we're trying to figure that out, like as we grow up, like in the relationships that we're in, the people that we're exploring with, and when we take the idea that when we take it as none of us know what we're doing, you can step into this really amazing place where you can put curiosity and exploration and discovery at the center of your sexual experience, which is so important. I always say, like, you want somebody and you want to be somebody in your sexual relationship. You want to be a tourist, not a tour guide, right? So a tour guide is someone that like knows the city inside and out, is going to take you to all hot spots. It's going to say like, this is the photo you want, stand here, do this, do that. And a tourist is somebody that, like, if you think about like you going to a new city, right? Your eyes are open, your mouth is open, your skin is open. You're like, oh my God, the smell of this place is amazing. Or, oh my God, look, all the food is so tasty. And you're like looking at buildings. You're like, oh my God, it's a red brick building. And you're like, we have them in Ireland and we like don't care about them there. Yeah. But in a different country, it's like something new. And so the difference is that when you're in a sexual experience with a tour guide, right? They have had sex before. They're like, I know bodies, right? But they don't know your body, right? What you like is going to be different. What I like is going to be different to what you like. The way that my body wants to be worked in any given moment in time is different to how yours does. So you want somebody who is approaching your body like they've never touched you before, whether it's your first time together or your like millionth time together, right? Yeah. Because your body is changing all of the time. Like as you get older, your body is changing. Like every single day, your body is changing. Every week, depending on what you're going through, is changing, and what your body wants is also changing. So it's constantly being in that receptive space of being like, okay, in that place of like wonder and curiosity, like I wonder what this feels like, or I wonder what that would feel like. So it's constantly being in that space of openness, right, to experience. Because a tour guide will be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing here, and we go bam, 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 do all the things they've done before, and then you're like, right, that was.
I feel like the tour guide is the man who thinks he's great at sex and is like, I'm great, blah, blah, and then you're like, what the fuck?
What on earth?
Just flipping you around and like what?
Yeah. So they're the ones, like, if someone comes up to you and says like, you know, I know how to make you work, you know, that's like this. You're just like, you were the last person
red flag.
I would
literally
yeah. Yeah. So you want to keep that kind of openness and that curiosity and experience. And that's how you keep, when people talk about like, how do you keep the spark alive? Yeah. How do you keep, like, because that's how you do it, right? Like, it's always being in that place of curiosity. I always say as well, like, when it comes to sexual confidence, there's 3 things that sexually confident people have in common. And sexual confidence is really important in relationships because the data says for like sexually confident people have more sex, and this is over a lifetime, not just in a short period of time, have more sex, and the sex they have is also more relaxed, right? So those are things we definitely want. And sexually confident people have 3 things in common. The first one is that it's not that they don't have insecurities, as that they aren't beholden to them, right? So they don't let, how their body looks stop them from doing certain things. So one of the things that I would always get is that, I don't like the way my body looks, or my body has changed after having babies, or I've put on weight since COVID and I don't want to have sex on top anymore, right? And so they're not beholden to their insecurities. It doesn't mean they don't have them. It just means that they're able to separate from their insecurities. Yeah. And this is really important because it means that if we have insecurities, we can do that too, right? So we can still feel like, oh my God, I wish I was like this a little bit, or I wish I was like this a little, or I wish I looked like this. And it's okay to have those thoughts. But if those thoughts are stopping you from doing something, that is when, it becomes a problem. The second thing is that sexually confident people don't believe that they kind of take away that there is a right way to do something and a wrong way to do something, right?
Yeah.
So that there's no such thing actually as good sex or bad sex, right? And again, it's coming back to the question of like, okay, that didn't work for me, so I didn't really like that too much, but actually I really liked this, right? So you're looking at things like this instead of black and white, like that was shit or that was, that was amazing, right? So you're taking that step back. And then the third thing is that you're able to approach challenges, right, with this sense of curiosity and discovery rather than fear of like, oh my God, what's going to happen if I do this? So say, for example, you have never been able to orgasm before. Instead of, stepping into that situation with a ton of fear and like, oh my God, I'm not good enough, or, things aren't working for me, my body must be broken. You're able to step into that place of like, okay, I'm not orgasming. I don't know if I've ever orgasmed. What can I do about this? So you start to look at your options. So those are things that sexually confident people have in common. Or even as well, like if you look at things like, say, if your partner is experiencing like a bout of erectile dysfunction, right? So first of all, I hate to use the word erectile dysfunction because I think it's like a really heavy word and it puts so much pressure on people, particularly men. And it's insane how many young guys like in their 20s use Viagra. It's like because there's so much of that pressure, right?
Put on their penis now, isn't it?
Is it? I know.
Yeah. There's like ads for it and all, like on TV.
Yeah, there's just so much pressure, right? Like put on them. So I hate to use that word.
Yeah.
I think it's just a really concrete word. If you hear the word dysfunction, instantly you're going to be like, oh my God, there's something wrong.
Sounds very heavy.
Right? So I always call it arousal fluctuations. And actually these things are really normal, or they're not normal, they're common in a sexual experience. So I always talk about, sorry, I'm answering your question, but then I always go off on a tangent. I'll just keep talking because I'm like, oh yeah, and then this leads onto this in my head. But when it comes to things like, so when it comes to sexual, when it comes to erectile dysfunction, so if you think of it in the context of today, years and years ago, remember when I talked about, we had, the sexual act was really more about duty, responsibility, and procreation. So making babies so that you could pass down your land, your inheritance, all that kind of stuff, and keep the name going on. So when it came to those situations, it didn't matter if a woman orgasmed or not. It didn't matter how long it lasted. It just mattered that the guy ejaculated, and that was that, right? That there are babies there now. Okay. So if we think about nowadays, right? So, and this was, even only in the 50s, right? It's not too long ago. If we think about nowadays, the focus on sexual interaction has changed from duty, responsibility, and procreation to pleasure, connection, intimacy, right? This is what the focus is on now. In that context, it means that it matters. Like if there's pleasure involved in the situation, it matters. Like a woman might want to orgasm from that situation, or might not. You know, it depends on what their intentions are. It also as well means that the time that you have sex for might be extended now. So it's okay if there are these arousal fluctuations during that period where you're having sex, right?
Yeah.
And also as well, things like changing position and stuff like this can change the, I suppose, the blood flow in the body as well. It can also as well, depending on the health of the pelvic floor in men's bodies, it can also change the way that the pelvic floor is being held. So these things can all have an effect, right? So it means that we have to allow for them in circumstances. But when I say that sexually confident people can approach challenges with this kind of sense of discovery and curiosity, they don't take it as like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. Like he's lost his erection. He must not fancy me anymore. Or, oh, there's something wrong with him, right? So there's the shame and the blame again.
Yeah.
They don't do this. They go like, oh, okay, well, there's a whole body here that I can play with. There's a whole body that's capable of experiencing pleasure. It's not just about the penis, and it's about exploring like different parts of the body that that can and will feel aroused. And in that kind of environment where there's that relaxation and not pressurized, right? Then there's an ability then to go back into that situation, you know?
Yeah.
And it's the same for women as well. I don't know if you ever noticed, but like if you feel pressured to orgasm in a sexual interaction, it's so impossible.
No, yeah.
And then you're going to faking it because you're just like, I just need to get this over with, so you can stop saying, oh my God, I want you to go for air. And it's like, oh my God.
Never fake, Sally.
I'm not telling you, or the listeners, go away.
80% the depth.
Definitely probably have, yeah.
I have, but not in a long time.
No, I definitely have.
Haven't you?
Yeah, I feel like we all have.
Everyone has definitely has.
If you say you haven't,
If you're like, right, this is not going to get any better and I need it done.
yeah, it just needs to stop now.
Yeah.
At this stage.
Yeah.
The results like always are, if you I put up a poll, every time I put up a poll on this, it's the same result over and over again, and it's actually, it correlates to the scientific data and the sex kind of research out there that 80% of women have faked an orgasm in their life, you know. So I mean, and again, you know, faking an orgasm isn't always a bad thing. If it becomes something that's chronic where you're doing it all the time, then there's an issue there, you know. So it might be something to do with that, like, you know, again, you just want the experience over with and you're like, I'm done, I'm finished here. I just want to, I want to complete this, you know. It might be that you don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. Like that comes from a good place, right? Like that intention comes from a good place. Or it might just be that you can't orgasm or you don't know how to orgasm and you're nervous about sharing that information with somebody, right? Or else you don't really want to feel like there's something wrong with you, right? So you do it, and maybe you also get off on that idea of like hearing the sound of your voice change and the vibrations in your body, and that initial kind of faking of an orgasm and the way that your body moves and this can help to stimulate an orgasm to happen. So there's loads of reasons, you know, for faking orgasms. They're not all bad, you know. It is an issue. I had someone message years ago and said, like, you know, oh, my boyfriend thinks he's been giving me these orgasms for the last 2 years. Joke's on him, he's never done it. And I remember thinking, like, I feel so sad for your partner because he sounds like he's been trying real hard for 2 years. And also, if you are faking over and over and over again, and you can't have that conversation with your partner, then what you are doing is you are training your partner how to not give you an orgasm, right?
They're just going to think that's how it is.
That's how it is. Yeah. So you're giving them wrong information, you know, and ultimately that's not going to serve you, you know. So, but everyone, 80% of people do it, you know, in their lifetime. So it's super common, you know.
Is it normal to not enjoy sex?
Yeah, there's, again, that's a huge question. Like I would say,
it's very big.
Yeah, I would say I have a workshop called The Principles of Sexual Wellness, and it talks about the difference between desire, arousal and libido. I think it's a really important workshop and everyone should do it. But we also break down desire. So some people have different types of desire, like they can be called demisexual. So demisexual is that, you know, you need an emotional connection before you can actually have sex with somebody. Sapiosexual is that you need a mental connection or an intellectual connection before you can feel connect to somebody to want to have sex. Asexual is that you don't actually feel like you need to have sex. You can still enjoy the act of sex, but you don't feel the need for it. Not enjoying sex can come from a couple of different things. So looking at those different desire styles, also different turn-on triggers that you might have as well, like just where the environment isn't set up in the way that you need it to be. So different kind of desire styles would be direct desire. So it's like you need to be told, like, so certain things that are arousing you before you get into the act itself that maybe aren't happening. So you need to be told directly, like, I want you like this, da, 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 and that's direct desire. Environmental desire means that there might be things in your environment that you need, very specific things that you need in order to be able to relax enough to enjoy the act of sex. And this could be down to things like having the dishes in the dishwasher, right? Because maybe you're sitting down having sex, thinking about
if I know like there's a mess in a certain place or something, like I can't relax.
That's environmental desire. And so if you know this, you can tell your partner this, and then things like, you know, instead of them, you know, maybe doing like a sexy dance for you, right, to try and turn you on, it'd be better for them getting the Hoover out, you know. I had this joke with
my room.
I had this joke with my partner, because my thing is environmental desire as well. You can have a mix of them. But my partner texted me one day. I was working so much that day, and he texted me and said, "Hey, I just defrosted your freezer for you because it was a mess." And I was like, "Oh my God, I am so turned on right now. This is insane." And so it kind of became a joke, you know. But so things like that, like, you know, and if your partner, for example, has environmental desires, they're thinking, you know, wearing sexy lingerie for them isn't going to turn them on as much as, like, you know, having really clean, crisp sheets, maybe where you like iron the sheets, like something like that, you know, like the hotel stuff, you know. So that's environmental desire. Then transactional desire is another one, where it's like you might need something in exchange, you know, for the act itself, and that's like totally normal. Another one would be almost like, it's kind of like cat and mouse desire. So it, like, there needs to be kind of like some kind of chase or interaction, kind of like, will you, won't you, or, you know, maybe I'll do this, you know, this,
maybe I will, you know. Maybe I won't.
But that there's some kind of cat and mouse game. So that could be that. And then during the act itself, like, if you're just not feeling anything, so there's like, if you're not enjoying it, like, there might be a chance that you're experiencing numbness when it comes to your body, right? So that means that numbness, people sometimes hear, like, you know, oh my God, I'm numb, you know, and I can't actually feel anything. And they freak out about it. But actually, numbness is a sensation, and it's generally one of the first sensations you will feel before you start to go into all the sensations that you can feel. So if you're not enjoying something and you're feeling nothing, that numbness is kind of a signal to you that there is a disconnect, so that you might be outside of your body rather than inside of your body. If you think for a moment about the fact that, you know, orgasm is a sensation. Sensations are things that you can feel in and through your body. You have to be in your body to be able to experience that pleasure in the first place. If your mind is in, you know, what you're thinking, the kitchen, and you're like, oh, that mess out there, you're now outside of your body and you're not able to feel or experience pleasure in the way that you do. So there's many different reasons for not enjoying sex. And again, if you are having sex with somebody else and you aren't enjoying it, then it's about trying to have that conversation as well, but in a really supportive way. So learning tools of sexual communication. I have loads of stuff on Instagram if you look through Save Stories, and I do workshops on this all the time. So I just say, like, look out for them, because it's really important that you're setting the conversation up well, where you're not shaming yourself or you're not blaming the other person, but you're keeping the conversation neutral so that you can actually experience, you know.
And are some people like just not sexually compatible with each other? Like, how do people stop having bad sex?
So the thing with bad sex, so if we think about the sexual confidence thing that I said before, where there's no such thing as good sex or bad sex, right? It's about building connection together. So the question that we had earlier, where it was, you know, how do I say what I like more and what I don't like more? If you apply all of those principles to learning how to have good sex, so it's oftentimes like when people meet somebody, they think that there has to be this initial spark, right, or connection, for it to progress. progress or continue. But that's only one way, right, that a fire burns, right? Like it's like that spark, right? But a fire can also start very slowly and build over time. So you think about friends with benefits, or even just friends, like you're friends for years and then suddenly you're like, oh my God, there is a connection here that we want to explore. So most of us, because again, we're given these scripts by society about what sex is, about what a relationship is, about what love is, we think there has to be the initial spark, the like, oh my God, the love at first sight, the like, my heart is racing, right? But there's many different ways to experience that kind of spark with someone, that kind of connection with someone, and then build that over time. And so I mean, if you're not having great sex and you would like to have better sex, you're looking at things like, how do you explore your own body to figure out what it is you actually like? Because if you talk to couples who aren't having great sex, what you will find is that they actually don't know what they like and what they don't like themselves. So it's like, it's looking at that first and foremost so that you can figure out like, what is it that I like, so that I can express it to myself. And then there's other things that you can do as well. So looking at things like starting to widen what your definition of sex is also really important. And actually it's a really good tip for the person who says, I don't really enjoy sex, you know? So if you widen what your definition of sex is, most of us, when we think about sex, we're thinking about heterosexual relationships, we're thinking about penis and vagina, and that's what sex is. But if you're having issues where maybe you haven't had sex for a long time, maybe you actually can't for some reason, maybe you experience pain during penetration, maybe you've just had a baby and penetration is off the table for a while. If you start to expand what your definition and widen what your definition of sex is, it takes the pressure and the loadedness that often comes with like, we haven't had sex in 6 months. So asking this question, like, what is sex to you, right? Is sex kissing? And you might go, not really. How about kissing with clothes off? Is that sex, right? Because like, where do you draw the line, right? So, and also as well, like if you think about, you know, sex with, you know, someone who is, so say for example, like if you were having sex with a woman, what defines sex then, right? If you're only used to having sex like with penis and vagina sex, right? So what defines sex then? So it helps you to, even if you're not inclined towards women, even just thinking about that can help you widen what your definition of sex is. So it takes the pressure off questions like, I'm not enjoying sex. Maybe you're not enjoying penetration, but there are things that you are enjoying, right? Like kissing, like the kissing stage of sex, or I mean, people don't really kiss for very long before they have sex, right? Or sometimes kissing in heterosexual relationships can disappear completely, and you go straight to the penetration, and then there's very little kissing. And kissing is really important, like part of stimulating the body and arousing the body. The mouth as well is also connected to the pelvic floor muscles. So when you are like moving your mouth, when you are kissing, you're also starting to stimulate the pelvic floor muscles, which aids in orgasm, right? So I don't know if you've ever experienced, like I did a kissing workshop in February, and we went through all these like different kissing techniques, and you know, how if you've lost kissing in your relationship, like how do you bring it back and stuff like this. And one of the things that someone said is that, oh, you know, my partner, whenever she's about to orgasm, she's always trying to kiss my face, and I always find it really, really awkward, and I'm trying to pull away, and she's like trying to, and I'm like, yeah, because if you kiss somebody and you're like this, what you're doing is you're creating pressure against somebody, but you're also creating tension in the pelvic floor. So as you're building tension towards an orgasm, your pelvic floor is contracting and releasing. And sometimes people do this with their legs, where they'll squeeze their legs, or they'll keep squeezing, and then the release happens when they orgasm. So that kissing can also be a way that somebody is trying to almost bring an orgasm on. So there's loads of different things that you can do, but it's really about, you know, I have too many tips, you know, but it's like how do you keep that sense of curiosity and discovery in there? I think education is the baseline of all of that, you know? Yeah.
So our secrets from the stalls, it's basically just dilemmas that we get sent in. We always like to say to people though that we're not Bible, in case we go and ruin someone's life. So we're not Bible, but we just like to kind of attempt to give people advice. You're obviously going to be here to give the best advice.
Well, it's like talking to your friends, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. It's like no bullshit. We're going to tell you how it is. So all of these dilemmas have been sent into our email address, holdmydrink@goloudnow.com, and we'll just jump into it. So the first one is, I've been with my partner for 2 years and he's a virgin and we've never had sex. I'm wondering how I can take our relationship to the next level, but I don't want to pressure him. He's 24, by the way. That was a big thing that came in through all the questions, actually, was the pressure of losing your virginity and stuff. So
I love that. So you guys have a younger demographic than what I would be working with,
right.
And it's really interesting because so I would have like mostly 24 to 35s would be my biggest, and then obviously then move into 45 would be the next category. But even in that category, I still have so many people who are messaging me to tell me that they're virgins, they've never had sex. Yeah, so it's such a common thing.
Yeah.
And again, because there's lack of conversation around it, people aren't talking about it. People think they're the only ones, right, that are experiencing it. So the thing that I said earlier, so one of the things, first of all, is looking at the kind of construct of virginity in and of itself. I always like to talk about in the environments that I'm in, instead of talking about virginity, because when we talk about virginity, we're talking about losing something, right? And that idea of losing something can feel quite daunting to people, right? Like you feel like you're losing a part of yourself or something like this. And it's a completely incorrect concept when it comes to...
I feel like when we were younger though as well, even when you'd think about losing your virginity, you're nearly always going to be connected to that person who takes it, like, and like you're saying, someone taking something off it.
Exactly.
It goes through your head and you're like, oh my God, what?
Yeah, and you're giving something to somebody. So again, there's so much pressure around the situation. So if you think that instead of a concept of virginity, the concept of sexual debut. So you know, like the Debs, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the debutante
ball.
Sexual
debutante.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, you know, you're stepping into a new environment and, you know, you're becoming a new person and it's a new phase of your life. That's what it's symbolizing. So if you're then looking at your first sexual experience and that first sexual experience as a sexual debut, first of all, you can continue to have sexual debuts throughout your entire life. They don't ever stop. And there's never this idea of losing something. It's just about like stepping into another phase, adding another layer, right?
Yeah.
So it becomes less pressurized and it becomes the kind of daunting aspect of it is lost almost completely, right? So it's learning how to reframe that concept of virginity, first of all. Another thing that I would say is that learn again and really think about expanding your definition of what sex is, because I'm absolutely positive that they're talking about penis and vagina sex.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely sure that they have probably kissed each other all over their bodies. They've probably had oral sex. Potentially, we don't know, right? So in that case, they're not virgins, right? So again, when you expand what your definition of sex is, you learn to take the pressure off the experience of penis and vagina sex as well, right? And then and even doing those two things will have such a transformative effect on any relationship or any person that is kind of holding the shame of like, I'm a virgin and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And then also as well, taking expectation off the table of like, if it's going to be good or bad, you know, and doing and having those conversations with each other as well outside of like, how would you like to feel during sex? Right? So instead of thinking about the act itself, because oftentimes when people are thinking about, you know, especially if someone is thinking about if it's a male losing his virginity, they're putting so much pressure on their penis to work. They're putting so much pressure to pleasure somebody. They're afraid to get it wrong. They're afraid, you know, for something to happen that's going to label them with like, you're bad at sex, right? So it's trying to take that pressure off the situation. And so it's looking at things like, instead of the act and what you're doing, like, how do you want to feel, right? Do you want to feel connected? Do you want to feel adventurous? Do you want to feel held, right? So how do you want to feel? And so stepping towards that instead. And those things are really important. Again, it's all about how do we take the pressure off? And then I would say as well, you know, it's very hard to, if you Google things, there's so little information around, you know, what to expect for your first time and things like this. So it's like even talking to each other about like, what are our expectations here, you know, and having those conversations beforehand. Again, how do I want to feel during this? You know, how can I create an environment that's more comfortable for you? And again, it's looking at things like, you know, learning your desire styles, for example, and your turn on triggers. You know, will we add lingerie in this experience? Like, do you want to add sex toys? Like, how do you feel? So it's asking those type of questions, you know, and seeing like how can you set the scene up almost, so that it's about more than just the act itself.
That's
you know,
kind of nice though, isn't it? That you like they can set the scene of how they both want it to happen.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
And then also then removing the expectations and the goals completely, right? Because you know, sometimes it just
Things
might
go
not
wrong.
work. You know, I mean, I always remember like the first time I had sex, like we went for dinner before, so I wanted it to be on Valentine's Day because I was like in my head, I was like, has to be Valentine's Day, and I'm like 19, I wasn't even young, you know. It's like, and we went for dinner. I wanted to have Chinese. I had sweet and sour chicken balls and fried rice, and I did not want to have sex afterwards, right? Because I was just like, oh my God.
No.
So it's okay. It's like having all these expectations set up, but then also releasing them all if that's what happens, you know? And now I know, like, never eat Chinese if you want to have sex, right?
Instant mood killing.
Yeah.
It just like weighs your whole stomach down.
Yeah.
The next one we have then is, I find penetrative sex painful. When having sex with a partner, I find it painful and uncomfortable. I don't know how to overcome this. The only time it isn't as painful is if I use a vibrator to stimulate the clit. My partner, I can't believe I said that word. I don't think I've ever said that in the podcast yet. My partner feels as though he isn't enough and he doesn't satisfy me. But that's not the case. Can you please help?
Yeah, that's, you know, pain during sex. So when it comes to issues that women experience, and sexual struggles that women experience, the top three are, the first one is inability to orgasm or don't know if you've ever orgasmed. The first one is low libido or lack of interest in sex. The second one is inability to orgasm or pain, inability to orgasm or don't know if you've ever orgasmed. The third one is pain during sex. So it's a huge amount of people who are experiencing this. And, you know, this comes back to the fact that, again, we don't get education. What's the thing you learned that your first time was going to be? Like, you learned that you're
sore.
Yeah,
you
learned
get your cherry
pop.
Yeah,
and sometimes you bleed.
Sometimes you bleed.
Yeah.
That is what we are told. This is not correct information. If you have pain during penetration, this is not supposed to be happening. If you're bleeding during sex, this is not supposed to be happening. And again, that comes from, you know, this idea that we have a hymen, right? And that it is sealed and they're going to break the seal when they penetrate the first time. Yeah. So actually, we have lots of different types of hymens. We know that now. So it's more kind of like if you look at, I normally have a scrunchie but if you think of a scrunchie, a hymen is more like a closed scrunchie that opens, right? Like, so it's not actually a seal. Some people can have a hymen that's completely sealed, and then you might have breakage the first time that you have penetrative sex. But normally if you're doing things like, if you're very active when it comes to like, sports when you're younger, if you've ever done horse riding, you know, the hymen can break in those situations as well. So pain and bleeding during your first time sex is absolutely not something that you should be expecting or thinking is going to happen. So because we get told, expect pain, a lot of people think that experiencing pain during penetration is completely normal, and it's absolutely not. I always say you should never be experiencing pain during sex unless you want to be, right? Unless you want to be, like, if you want to be spanked or if you want to be, you know, whatever, bound somewhere, you know. And also, like, pain and pleasure is a thing, right? For some people. When it comes to pain during penetration, the fact that she is saying that when she uses a vibrator on her clit that she finds it less painful would indicate to me that she probably needs more time on the arousal stage of her sexual interactions with her partner, and also slower penetration. So I always do these things. So in the self-pleasure workshop with women, I teach them how to penetrate themselves in a really slow, really gentle way, and where they're only really listening to their body, like they're following their body's cues. This is what happens when you have more self-pleasure in your life. Like, you can start to feel your body saying yes to things and saying no to things, and also kind of leading you where it wants to be led. So self-pleasure is amazing for this as well. And then I would also recommend that she would go to a pelvic floor physiotherapist, because they will check the health of her pelvic floor. So our pelvic floor is supposed to be adaptive, meaning that it's supposed to contract and it's supposed to relax, right? Whereas for some of us, we can have a maladaptive pelvic floor, which means it can get stuck in one or the other. Generally for people, it's getting stuck in the in tension, right? So in the contraction.
And that's why it's sore.
And that's why it's sore, right?
Yeah.
And so there's exercise that pelvic floor therapists can give you. I also give them to people in workshops when they pretty much every workshop we do one specific one that's just so good. It's just so good for women's health in general and pelvic floor health, and even for health in men's bodies as well, supporting like, you know, stronger erections and orgasms, and then also like helps if you experience pain during sex. And it's literally putting your hands on the base of your body and breathing down into your pelvic floor. So when you inhale, you're thinking about, let's all do it. And just open your legs just a little bit. So when you close the legs, you can kind of feel in between the pelvic floor is a little bit tighter. Yeah. So you open just a little bit.
Where
and
is
now,
the pelvic floor? Like behind,
so the pelvic floor is like a sling. So the pubic bone is here, right? Just above the clitoris. You can feel it if you press into it. And then it slings around to the back where the tailbone is, right?
Wow.
So, yeah. And so it's like it's almost like a hammock, right? If you want to imagine like this.
Oh, okay.
Pelvic floor is the most important thing that you can understand when it comes to your sexual life, right? And so if you even now, when you're sitting here, most of us, like for women, we're used to sucking our stomach in, right? All the time.
Yeah.
So we tend, when we breathe, not to breathe down into the pelvic floor. So to have pelvic floor issues is really common, right? So it's about relaxing your body and then relaxing your lower belly. Just let your lower belly out, really good. And then almost like relax the lower back as well. Yeah. And then when you breathe, you want to think about inhaling. So really slowly, just inhale all the way into the base of the body. And you want to feel like, and even imagine it at first, like the pelvic floor, almost like a hammock, is expanding and opening down into the chair as you inhale. And then when you exhale, there's a little squeeze and a little contract, and the pelvic floor is lifting and rising to the belly button. Inhaling really slowly. Yeah. Breathe down and open, expand. Feel like the pelvic floor expanding like a hammock. And then exhale, that little squeeze, that little lift towards the belly button.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
You can feel it. Like,
I never breathed that far down before.
Yeah, and so it's a really important exercise.
Yeah.
And it can be very hard for people to do. And oftentimes when I teach it, I have people then telling me, oh, when I inhale, my belly button sucks in. Because I always say, like, you know, you expand your belly button out. You almost want to balloon the lower half of your body like you're pregnant with breath, right? And so even doing that for women can be very difficult, because we're kind of taught, like, keep sucking in and like don't let yourself don't let your belly go, or you're fat, you know, like all that stuff. So all those things can keep us holding on and keep it tight. And actually that can change the pattern. So when we inhale, our diaphragm up here around our ribs needs to expand and open down so the lungs fill. And our pelvic floor is attached to that breathing pattern, and it's supposed to expand and open down as well. And then when we exhale, the lungs contract and press the breath out of the lungs, and the pelvic floor lifts and kind of compresses up a little bit as well. And when we hold our stomach in, generally when we inhale, our lungs are going out, but our pelvic floor is almost moving up and contracting. And then when we relax, our pelvic floor is going back down to the normal state, like its resting state, let's say. So there's this constant movement of compression in the base of your body, and there's no relaxation, which can cause pain, right? So going to a pelvic floor physiotherapist, that person will be able to check the function of their pelvic floor. And so for anyone who's experiencing pain during sex, I would say book yourself in. And there's other reasons as well that you can experience pain during sex. You know, things like endometriosis can be pain during sex can be a symptom of endometriosis and things like this. So also going to your GP would be a good idea as well. But for her, the fact that she talked about the vibrator on her clitoris, it would indicate to me that's more a pelvic floor issue, you know. So
I've learned so much.
You're a woman of absolute knowledge. My God,
seriously.
it's mad just sitting here like not learning. But like understanding so much more of it now.
Behind why things are the way
that they are. Yeah.
Where can people find you on socials? And also you've live shows coming up.
Yeah.
Just talk a little bit about
oh my God, the live shows.
Yeah.
So I'm on Instagram, Hello Jenny Keane, and then I have a website, but they're attached to the Instagram, you know. So I generally have like quite large conversations on Instagram and like Q&As and this year I've been extremely busy with work. I've also set up another company called omoment.com. So it's like o-moment.com. So I'm doing loads more workshops on that, and I have guest lecturers in on workshops, and I also have an online sex toy shop as well, and loads of education things. And then I basically do shows as well. So these shows now are in September. There's 2 in Vicar Street, 1 in Cork and 1 in Belfast, and basically it's just a sex education show. So it's about like bringing fun and humor and education, like really important conversations to people, like in a really unique way. I said, like, you know, the thing, like, this is Ireland's first sex education show. I was
going to say, is this the first of its kind?
Yeah. But you know what's so funny? I have performers from all over the world. Like, I've done a lot of traveling, like with what I've done. So I met these amazing people who are just incredible, like world class people, you know. And I wanted to bring them in to just show people like different things. So, you know, when you're talking about like how do you get ideas, like to, you know, spice things up or whatever, this show is supposed to be about that. So we have like a kind of a, you know, acts that come on, and one is like a domination act and another one is a sensation play, and they use wax, like, and it's really sexy, like they're really, really amazing. But when we did the show with them, they were like, this isn't just like Ireland's first sex education show, it's like the world's first, you know.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really different, and it's about, I think I wanted to bring the conversation, I think more so to the public, because online, when it comes to talking about sex, you're literally filtered like all the time. You're blocked all the time.
Yeah.
Your account can be taken as well the whole time. So I'm always like, just sign up to emails, but even emails are blocked as well.
Really?
You know,
Wow.
yeah. So it's really hard to communicate sometimes. You know, it's like, yeah, people have to make a real effort, I think, for those things. But I wanted to bring the conversation more so into the public sphere, and also because last year I attempted to do the first in-person show, and a council, I won't say which one, basically stopped it from happening because they were like, no sex shows allowed. And I was just like, I thought we had moved the conversation so much further. Yeah.
Like, wow.
And so for me, you know, I don't like being told I'm not allowed to do things.
That'd make you want to do it more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We started off in Vicar Street. So we did the first show in Vicar Street in April, and it was just so much fun. And it's not just for women, it's for everybody.
Everyone,
like
yeah.
men are there, like couples are there, like it's just really good fun. And my whole thing is like, how can we have a really good time, and also how can I give you enough information that you have like the best sex of your life in the weeks like that you following that, you know.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then I've been working on products this year as well, and one of them was like an intimacy spray, and it's called pheromones. So basically, pheromones are like hormones, but that act on the outside of your body, and like we naturally emit pheromones. Like a certain point in our cycle, when we're ovulating, we'll give off pheromones, and it's like this I suppose, invisible signal to be like, hey, I'm ready, you know?
I've seen about on TikTok.
Yeah.
That people get them, and like all of a sudden all these men are like texting them and like
so
approaching them.
So I love all this stuff, because I'm like, oh, I'll test all this out, you know? And I was like, this is shite, like it doesn't work. And then I went down this rabbit hole of like trying to figure out like, okay, what are pheromones? How do you recreate them? What are they actually putting in? So I found that a lot of people who are putting more just things like that activate arousal in the body. So I basically found this madman in Amsterdam, and he actually works for, I mean, I say madman in the sweetest way. He's so passionate, and he's a perfumer, and he works for like really big brands like Givenchy and all that kind of stuff. And I started speaking to him about what I wanted to do, and he got so passionate about it that then we started working together. So I create my own pheromone spray, and it's so funny because he sent me over a load of test sprays, and this was like back in January or something, or February, and they were all these big labeled bottles, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was liking number 4 the most, and I started spraying like around the house, like just to see like, did I actually like the smell and all that kind of stuff. My boyfriend came in one of the nights, and it was so funny because he's like really calm, like very relaxed, and we're sitting down, he made dinner, and I had already sprayed it, and he's sitting down. And the next thing of all, I swear to God, I was looking at him, and we were just looking at each other. I was just chatting, and it was like normal things. And next thing of all, his eyes went black, you know, like a shark, you know.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh my God. and then we had an amazing time. But then, I was like, I would message your man the next day. I was like, it's number 4.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
it works.
Yeah.
People can buy that.
Well, I need that.
Can they buy
Well,
that?
I actually, so I gave it out in Vicar Street in April, like a tester bottle to everyone, because I want to know, like, it works for me, I want to know if it works for other people. And like the messages that I started getting back in, like people were like, holy shit, what is in this, and it's been in production like ever since, and it's taking ages to do the bottles and stuff for it, but so it will be on sale eventually. But like I got this really one funny message from somebody saying like, Jenny Keane, is this yours? I'm babysitting somebody at the moment, and I sprayed it on myself in the bathroom. She's like, and now I'm really fucking aroused. And I was like, yeah, probably the best time to spray. Don't use my product.
Will that be out this year, do you think?
Yeah, it'll be out this year.
year.
Yeah, very soon. Like we're looking at like around mid-September in the same time as the shows.
Lovely. I'll be your first customer. Thanks a million. Woohoo.
Thanks so much for coming on, Jenny. It's been great.
Oh,
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks so much. I just keep chatting to you.
I think our listeners will learn a lot.
Oh,
of that.
100%.
Yeah.
We all did. So thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, and like do get them to come to the workshops. I do like a really funny one, and I do the sex skills ones just go so crazy. Like I did a blow job one, or it's called blow, so it's hand jobs and or it's hand skills and mouth skills, and I have blow 2.0 coming out in October as well, just because everyone went so crazy for it, but they're all really good fun.
Yeah.
And all on your Instagram, there'll be links there.
Yeah, they're all linked
and
there.
your website and stuff,
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's amazing to speak to you.
Sip or skip then, because we were talking all things
Sex,
baby. Let's talk about you and me. Today's sip or skip. Let's do going on top in sex.
I'm not going to do either because I'm not opposed to it, but I don't love it. Like, wouldn't be my first move.
Okay, so you sip basically.
I don't sip or I don't skip.
Okay.
I wouldn't.
You don't have to love it to sip though. You can just like skip just means you hate it. Like
No.
it's fine.
Yeah, it's grand.
I
Like,
think you feel it more sometimes.
and then my legs get a bit sore sometimes.
Yeah, fuck me.
And I'm conscious of my belly. So I say, no, flip me over.
do the reverse.
Then I'm conscious of my bum hole. Just be conscious of everything sometimes. So, yeah.
I hate that when you know that they can currently be staring.
You are staring right to my anus.
You're looking at my bumhole.
Anus. You
Yeah.
are staring into it like,
Yeah.
ooh.
What are they seeing?
Yeah, I don't know. I wish there was like a little curtain over it or something.
Little plug.
Yeah.
You can get like diamond butt plugs, you know.
I wouldn't put a butt plug up my bum. I saw a TikTok and some woman, it sucked up her bum, stuck on her.
I just TikTok and still fearing me into every situation.
I got stuck in her. She finished having sex and all, and then she asked the man, she was like, where's that butt plug? And he was like, I don't have it. I didn't take it out with you. And she was like, oh, fuck. It's still up me.
Nah.
No.
See, that would turn me off.
Are you sipping or skipping?
I'm going to say sip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel confident in doing stuff like that.
Do I?
You would.
Oh,
I
I
don't.
thought you said do. I thought you asked me, do I? No, I don't like. It's very hard.
It's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Pillow princesses.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for listening. A huge thank you to Coca-Cola Zero Sugar for sponsoring the podcast. We're huge fans of Coca-Cola Zero Sugar, and we're so excited to be working with a brand that we love and adore so much.
Make sure to pick up a can the next time you are out and about. Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is available literally nationwide, so you can get it anywhere and everywhere.
Also, now you can go back and listen to our bonus episode for Monday, Home with Drink Extra Juice. So make sure to listen back to that now before a new bonus episode next Monday and every Monday to come. And don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll see you all next week. Monday. Yeah, Monday. Love you. Bye.
Hold My Drink with Charlene and Ellie, a GoLoud original podcast, proudly sponsored by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. Best Coke ever? Take a taste.